And we're back to doing 3 matches in a week. Welcome back to Championship, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're expecting. Again, we've got, Norwich fan. We've got Callum back on. Callum, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm good, thanks, Neil. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I mean, the last time we had a conversation, we're both in the Premiership. How a couple of years changes things, eh?
Absolutely. I was expecting it with us, I think, being back in the championship, but very surprising to see you guys down here, I think.
Yeah, we were surprised, but after last year, again, you finish at the bottom three in the league for a reason, and you just
Mm,
tend to be the worst teams.
yeah.
But we'll get onto that. But we'll talk about Norwich first. I mean, how have Norwich been so far this season? I know there's not had a lot of games to go off as of yet, but how have they been this season?
Yeah, pleasantly, yeah, pretty good actually. Better than I thought we'd be. I think before the start of the season, I wasn't actually expecting a lot because the form at the end of last season was abysmal. But so far, apart from the Rotherham game where we've just lost, unfortunately, it's been okay. It's been okay. I think it's been intensity's been good. Some of the new signings are working quite well, I'd say, especially Barnes. And yeah, it just seems to be like there's at least at least hopefully a top half finish. Which honestly, before the start of the season, I was really worried because it just looked so bleak end of last season.
Really, Jesus, was interesting.
Mm.
We'll get on to again some of the managers obviously last season as well around that. But just coming into that, I mean, at the moment you are sitting in the playoff positions. You mentioned top half. Is that kind of your still ambition, or do you think potentially you could go for them playoff spots and try and finish there as well?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, with the way the first few games have gone, and you can't always use logic all the time. The opinions will change. I would like top six, obviously. Um, yeah, I'd be really happy with top six because I think like you guys, like Southampton, and I know they're not currently really up doing that well, but Leeds as well come down. A lot of expectation, a lot of money as well for the league. I think top six would be pretty good, and that would give us a chance to try and get back.
Yeah, and I think again it gives that opportunity, especially with it is looking like a tough league so far. But just coming into David Wagner and how he's been so far as well. Just obviously a new manager this season, got some experience in the Premiership and obviously the Championship. But how's he been so far?
Yeah, he's been good. He's been good. I think when he originally came after Dean Smith was sacked, he was he got some results together. People were getting really excited. I was still seeing some of the same, problems under Smith at the beginning, and then the form really dropped. So I didn't have that much hope. But the first few games this time, we're looking intense. Some of the players are gelling. There's nicer passing as well, and players that aren't strikers are contributing with goals like Fashnat, like Rowe. So I'm really happy with that at the moment. I think people's opinions of him have slightly changed. I don't think I was alone in being a little bit skeptical of him. Coming in because it just some people thought as well a bit of a lazy appointment. You could. I don't know. I think it's going well so far. So let's hope that we can continue the momentum and go up to top six.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And what kind of style of football does Wagner play? Because again, coming into this, we have a very specific style of football. What kind of style does Wagner play?
It's quite tough. I'll be honest, it hasn't always under when I've been watching David Wagner games. It's not always been nice to watch. I think sometimes it's quite tough. Sometimes it's good defensively. So compared to Farker, for example, you don't see always the fluid play. It's not always. But at the same time, like when I saw the Huddersfield game a few weeks ago, that there were some real nice attempts. Passing the ball, and I know it was against much weaker opposition, but it's tough. But what I do worry about is when we do try and play the ball at the back. Sometimes I still feel like there might be some defensive mishaps, and that's where I'm worried about. You guys. I know you guys have got some new strikers like Tom Cannon and the other one, another one that you got. What's his name? I can't remember. Was it from the French league?
Oh, Mavididi.
Yeah, they were both linked to Norwich as well, which was
Oh,
disappointing.
really?
Yeah, that we didn't get them. But that's where I'm worried. You've got these new players and you've spent some decent amount of money for the championship. So yeah, the Wagner style, it's tricky because I've been trying to work it out. Still because this. But what I'll say is this year it looks different. But I'd like to think if we can get the first goal and get ahead, we'd try and make it tough for you. But as you know, for the Southampton game, that didn't really work. It wasn't a defensively compact game at all.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you, and I think I just wanted that was going to be my next question as well in terms of Southampton. I mean, the 4-4 that for me
Mm,
was like looking from the outside again. What was your opinion on that? Because from the outside, I was like, well, this is back to the Championship. Obviously, with Southampton just coming down, one of the favourites to come back
yeah.
up. then obviously the 4-4. I mean, well, what did you make of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was Russell Martin as well managing. I mean, a lot of Norwich fans have like good, nice opinions of him because he played so many games for us. But I think with Russell Martin, he always tries to play these games as a manager where that really, really passing football, and when it goes well, it goes really well. But at the same time, when it goes wrong, it was a little bit predictable. And I don't think Southampton had a proper defensive midfielder playing, and they had players like Ward-Prowse and all that saying they wanted to leave. So we caught them, I think, they were at their best that day with some of them moves, but also at their worst. So it was just a bit of a chaotic game all round, really. I mean, all the defensive compactness, as I said, that I think Wagner tries went out of the window, but I think we were unlucky. I think I would have liked the 3 points from that game, and that's because Southampton could have scored right at the end as well, so we could have lost it quite easily. But I was a little bit disappointed. But yeah, what a game of football it was for the neutral.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that weekend there was quite a few results, but that one stood out specifically. And I was thinking, this is what I've missed from the Championship, from the
Yeah,
Premiership, where it's
typical
like 1-0,
Championship.
1-0, 2-1, 1-0, and then you just have a result like that, which is more common in the Championship. There's something that I'm looking forward to. And then obviously in terms of that, again, we're going to mention a couple of other bits, but Dean Smith, I mean, manager somehow coming in, he managed both of our teams last season. I mean, how do you see him after his time at Norwich? Because obviously he left that job and then he came. Well, you got we were fired from that job and then he ended up joining us and took us down as well. Wasn't his fault, by the way, because it was just we were just an absolute mess. But what do you support opinions on Dean Smith?
Yeah, I mean, his time at Norwich was pretty disappointing, to be honest. And when he came in, I did feel bad for him because we'd gone up with Farker, who was so amazing in the Championship. He had what you were talking about earlier about Wagner. Yeah, he had that style. You just knew how Farker was going to play, and in the Championship it worked, but in the Premier, so obviously didn't. And we tried to do something completely different by getting Dean to try and keep us in the league. And then you're thinking, okay, give him some time in the Championship, get us some new players, get us firing back up. And after we were getting some results at the beginning, but then you had some question marks over how it didn't really look always that convincing. And then it really, there was that game, I think probably was the last game where I went to, was the Luton game where we lost. And after that, you could kind of just tell nothing was really working. And in a way, I feel a bit sorry for him because it didn't seem like he had a lot of help really, and the fact he had that really negative Prem season before, it probably didn't do his confidence any good. So I in a way I feel a bit bad for that, but it wasn't always pretty, the football. We had players for the Championship that you'd think could go on and really get a challenge on, and the fact we weren't really even challenging near the end, like before the season ended, we were out of the race completely. I know Wagner came in, but I feel like a lot of damage was done with Dean Smith.
Fair enough. I think we kind of have a not similar opinion because obviously the circumstance was different. I think he had 9 games to try and save our season, and at that point, I think, as you know, the mentality of a team when they're just losing week after week, trying to turn that around is horrific. And I don't blame him. He came in for a short-term stint, but I wish him all the best. But I'm quite glad we didn't take him in the Championship, if that makes sense. He's a good manager. He's a nice guy, but he's not a manager that you're like, I really like this guy. Like you probably mentioned, like Farker, for example.
Yeah. I think we had something. I mean, it's, as you know, it shouldn't always necessarily be about that. It should be about what's on the pitch. I think the fact he didn't have that same connection, and Farker was such a big character that didn't always go well with the Norwich fans. But at the same time, what was on the pitch wasn't pretty. The atmospheres were poor. And you'd think I think the players had to take responsibility as well, obviously. But yeah, not the best. And I don't know it for sure, but I'm sure his win percentage must be pretty dreadful, especially the Prem stuff. But I know the way that Norwich operate in the Prem and all that. That's not all to do with the manager. I mean, we're not really built for it yet, in my opinion. But that's another story.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And just on that, with somebody you mentioned as well, Falk now gone to Leeds. So what's your opinion on that as well? Because I imagine from you, obviously looking at afar, but how do you think he's going to do at Leeds?
Yeah, it depends how long they give him because with Farker's first season at Norwich, it wasn't actually very good at all. We finished mid-table. I think we finished. We had James Madison that season, and he was amazing. I think we had Angus Gunn then on loan from Man City before. Now we have him permanently. Obviously now and there was a couple of others like Grant Hanley and Tom Tribal that were pretty good. But other than that, we took a few players out of the team. I don't know how he would have done. It was really difficult. It was players, trying to gel in this really new style of football that did not work. And you're kind of looking at Leeds at the moment and thinking, is it almost a repeat? Are there too many players, trying to learn this new style of football? But then obviously after that first season, it went really well. So it might just be that at the moment the defensive is just not defensively suitable right now, which was Farke's problem in the Prem. But for the Championship and with Leeds and with the budget that they've got, you'd think he'd do an all right job. But it's really weird to see him at another English club because he was such a big character at Norwich.
Yeah, and he was such again from not just yourself, but other people said he has such a good connection with the fans as well. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
with Fogger, you're right, but you can get away with it more in the Championship than you can in the Prem, especially adapting to a new style where you have to be
Definitely,
a
yeah.
lot more clinical in the Prem. And just a player that you mentioned as well, I wanted to take obviously went from you to us and now to Spurs. James Madison.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you made of his time at Leicester, but also there's a lot of people talking about him now. Are you almost surprised, or was it something that you went, I knew he could hit those levels potentially?
Oh, I knew he could hit those levels 100%. I mean, even I remember, God, it must have been January deadline day of the winter 2016. I think we signed him from Coventry and loaned him back to Coventry for the rest of the season. And even then, when I saw little clips of him, he was really young. I thought, a real talent. And then when he finally got the chance in the Norwich team, I was sure that he'd be playing eventually for England. I know he's not always a regular under Southgate, which is a bit of a shame, and maybe it's because the formation doesn't quite suit him, or it just hasn't. He hasn't had the England career he quite deserves. But in terms of the talent he is, and what Spurs fans are seeing right now, I always knew he had that in him. And with you guys as well, he was a superb player, and his free kicks are amazing. It really creative, and his link-up play with Vardy and everything was always really good to see. It would have been nice to have seen him stay for Norwich for longer, and then find Pookie because they didn't quite meet. But yeah, a really good talent, and it will be nice to see him, as I said, do well and hopefully kick on for England.
Yeah, it's interesting with England because I think you're right. I think he's a great player for a system, but the problem is Harry Kane drops deep. And when
Mm,
you've got that, the only way to really play James Madison optimally is, play him in that 10.
mm,
Now that means you have to kind of get rid of Harry Kane, and that's just not going to happen. So he's gone a
yeah,
victim of just a better player.
I think so. Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Yeah, that is a. I mean, Harry Kane is really good at it, and we'll see. We'll see if we'll see. There might be a time, where England, they need someone to take a free kick really late. He comes on, he does, he does that as a really heroic moment. But yeah, that's a really good point. And it would have been nice if Kane had stayed at Tottenham. You never know Madison and Kane how they would have worked together. But he now has Son around him, and if Richarlison can kick on and actually become a successful player at Spurs, because he did show that he could do that at Everton. It could be a really successful one for him there.
Yeah, I think so, and I think hopefully, okay, because again, we have a lot of time and respect for him, especially with last season. As you might have had this at your squad though, as last season a lot of players just wanted out the door; they didn't want to be here, and James Madison was the one at times kicking and dragging the team forward, but it wasn't enough. I think Leicester players, we wish him all the best, but it just wasn't to be.
Mm.
And yeah, in general, for going back to kind of Norwich, who should Leicester fans really look out for coming into the game on Wednesday? So who would you say would players for Leicester fans to really look out for?
I'd probably say Johnny Rowe because I think was it that 5 games in a row or something, including the cup maybe. He scored a goal, and before the start of the season, I would not have predicted that he had that in him, to score those goals because he had played for us. He'd always been like someone who'd come off the bench a couple of seasons ago in the Prem, a young academy player. Last season he didn't really play at all. A lot of that was because he had injuries, so he only came off the bench, a couple of times. But then this season I was thinking, oh, we haven't signed a winger, but he's just been amazing. He's got great skills. He has that, eye for goal. He's become a player. I didn't think he had it in him, so he's really pleasantly surprised me. But I know what he can do, and he works really hard. So, and that's going to be really important. With Josh Sargent now being injured, we need someone who can work hard, up front, and maybe try and catch you guys out if there's a defensive error in there.
Potentially, and we're getting better. I think defensively, there's always been a bit. I think in every game so far, we've been a bit suspect. Apart from Hull, which ironically we lost. But the rest of the games we've looked a little bit suspect. But coming into this, we've had Yannick Vestergaard at the back. Now
Mm,
probably Connor Cody's going to come back in for this game,
mm,
who's he's like again. I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprised that we got him. I was
yeah.
expecting us not. So, but yeah. So the way that Leicester plays a bit of a. So it's one for the not for the older fans. I think so. We've set up with like a three. We've very heavily possessioned. Play three at the back with like two in front, four midfielders, and then one attacker. I mean, how do you think Norwich will cope with that?
Hopefully okay. I think, as I said with Wagner, not knowing exactly how he worked. Not I don't think he's got a proper style. It can vary, because I think in the games that I've seen from Wagner, sometimes we're amazing and sometimes we're just not. I do think we do have that really. I'd say that sometimes we do have the dark arts in us now, especially with Ashley Barnes. Those kinds of players to really slow the game down. So let's hope that they can be effective. But as you mentioned earlier, with Southampton, and when I said about the Huddersfield game earlier, if we want to try and outplay you, we're going to try and do that, because if we want to be a top six team, we're going to have to try. And I know you've got this new manager, isn't it? Wasn't he in the Man City coaching setup or something? I hadn't really heard of him much before. You guys got him, but we're going to try. He's going to be trying to show this new system that he's got, and we're going to try and almost knock your guys' confidence. But I do think, it'll be a really tough game, because you've got the parachute payments. You've got, as you say, Connor Cody. That's was it over 7 million or something?
Yeah.
That's a good championship signing. You're probably one of the only clubs in the league that could have, maybe the only club in the league that could have afforded him. I'm not sure if how Leeds and Southampton's finances compare, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting game. But I'm hoping that we can just go past.
Fair enough. I hope again you have got the opportunity, because if you look at Hull, they did something very similar. They played at us. They go, we haven't got the men for it. I think Hull are a good side playing some good football, but they just frustrated Leicester and they end up getting the win at the end of the day. Yes, it was a deflected goal, but sometimes you just got to, even if you can't beat them by, as we have known from watching playing like the bigger teams, if you can't always beat them with the players, you've got to kind of grind it out. And I think that's what Hull is. So
Yeah.
it is possible to do it.
Yeah, it might have to be, the dark arts. If you get, do you guys still have like Dewsbury Hall, don't you, as well? Like, do you still? Yeah, players like that for the championship, unbelievable. And you're going to be starting maybe some of these new strikers as well. I don't know if Cannon's going to be in or whoever. Is Vardy still involved as well?
Vardy's there.
Yeah,
He's probably Kelechi Iheanacho will probably start because he's favoured.
I
Jamie
forgot that he was
Vardy,
still there as well.
yeah, he's been there for years. Been here for years now.
Yeah,
Still a fantastic
I was
player,
going to say
but
for the championship, that's unbelievable.
yeah, some of the squad we've got is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
the way we play football, you'll be surprised. The strikers don't actually get much touch of the balls. It's more of the midfielders and the wingers that tend to get more of the goals. So for me, I'll say that's an area to look out for. Even though you've probably got Jamie Vardy on the pitch, it's the players around it that do the running and the scoring, which is not what because for years I've watched Jamie Vardy kick and scream and drag our teams forward and score the goals. Now it's the inverse, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think it will be a really interesting game. But yeah, the Dewsbury Hall. You've still got Ndidi as well.
And Didi's still there playing as an advanced
Yeah,
state. It's very crazy.
that's an unbelievable squad for championship level. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it will have to be a Sean Dyche kind of inspired. We might have to see how good you are with the possession. I think what we can hope is your new guys are kind of still gelling. There's obviously not for you guys, but hopefully still a bit of a confidence loss from last season, because but you guys have got a really good squad. So I think most Norwich fans will be probably pretty worried. I'm sure Wagner will be aware of that and try and shut you guys out.
Yeah, I think so as well. But yeah, Callum, I just want to say, thank you so much for coming on. How do you think this game's going to go?
I was thinking about this earlier. I think my heart says 2-1 Norwich, but head maybe 2-2. It might be another, not quite to Southampton level, but we're going to have to do some work.
Fair enough. I think I'm hoping so that we can get the win, but the thing is, you can't guarantee it, and especially when the games come on. We've got Southampton the week before. We've just come out of the Southampton result, but we've got Southampton the week before. So it's going to be a tough month. But yeah, Callum, again, I'll leave your Instagram and YouTube down below, but feel free to plug away as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so posted by Callum. I am on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. So hopefully I'll be doing some more football content on there soon. I had a few months of a break since I think my last upload, but yeah, it's been great. And to be honest, so thank you, Neil, and good luck, but not the best of luck.
I know what you mean. You too. Best luck after that match, and
yeah,
yeah, make sure
absolutely.
like and subscribe, everybody. We'll see you all in the next video. So goodbye.